So I was asked earlier whether we do with profits funds on analytics, and it's something that comes up quite a bit. So I thought I'd put together a video and a tip to explain how this works, because there's a few things to bear in mind. Ultimately, yes, we do have with profits funds on the system, but it very much depends on whether it's unitized or non-unitized. So kind of a newer age with profits funds, unitized, we're likely to be picking up the unit price, and therefore you should be able to find the fund up here, how you would find any other fund. So pension or insurance universe, find the manager, find the fund and click on add, or find its name. In fact, if you type in profits into that search box, you'll find every fund with profits in the title, which is invariably all the unitized with profits funds. So that's pretty simple, and that will show you the performance of those funds since inception. A little trickier are the older style with profits funds, the non-unitized versions. They're not necessarily going to be on the system, but there are ways of mimicking the performance. So a couple of things to consider. Under market indices, a lot of the time when you're looking at a kind of a non-unitized with profits fund, or even a unitized with profits fund that isn't on analytics, you will be able to find what the performance is on an annualized basis. So if you can find out that the with profits fund that your client has an annualized performance of 4.5% or 3.5%, or whatever that looks like, under the market indices tab at the very top, there's various different use cases for this particular range of indices, but one of them is to mimic the returns of a with profits fund. So again, if I know that my client's with profits fund is achieving 4% a year, then I can just go and grab the 4% growth rate. Now, I might want to be comparing that against an investment solution that I'm recommending that client invest into, which happens in this case, let's say, to be a model portfolio 3 of mine. Add that in, and then I can start charting the performance of those two side by side on a 5-year performance, and that will show me ultimately, this is the performance of my with profits fund versus the model portfolio. It will be worth mentioning to the client as well, the whole reason you're having to go down this route is because their investment solution is so opaque that you can't even get performance information on a fund research tool such as analytics. You're having to use a growth rate, and the mere fact that it is so opaque is one of the core reasons you're looking to transfer them away. So that's one way of doing it. The downside of this, though, is at the very bottom there, you're saying it shows FE interest 4% in GB 21.67%, which isn't ideal because you're then having to explain to the client what on earth FE interest 4% means. So another little trick to consider is you could build a portfolio. I won't do that now, but if you click on new portfolio and then just add that into the portfolio and assign it with 100% weighting, and then you could call the portfolio Mrs. Smith Aviva Old School with Profits Fund. So you will have a portfolio in the system called Mrs. Smith Aviva with Profits Fund, and then that would show up on the chart instead. And that would just be a simple case of going into new portfolio, finding that on the screen, adding that into the portfolio, assigning with 100%, and then calling it whatever you like. The other thing to consider, just lastly, is that we've got our own sectors up here. These are quite popular. So again, whether it's the pension or insurance universe, under sectors, if you scroll right the way down to the bottom, you've got pension with profits. So again, if I go and create a 5-year performance graph, once again, if we don't have that with profits fund on the system, that's something you could use. You could show the client, well, look, over the last 5 years, this is how my proposed investment solution is done versus your average with profits fund. And again, the very fact that I'm having to use an average figure is indicative of the reason why I want you to move away from that fund, because it is so opaque. But they would be the various different ways I would use analytics to compare a with profits fund on the system. So I hope you found that useful.